You'll be in there going, oh shit, I hate to walk out, I'll be embarrassed. You have to
Just
wait
stay
till
in there.
everybody's gone.
Hey, Kirby. No.
Reading the cheers. How's it going? Good.
Bye.
There we go.
Great.
started today. He's coming.
There it is.
Oh, now we can start. Okay. Are we good to go on the video? So, I'd like to welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. This is a regularly scheduled meeting. As far as roll call, looks like everybody's here tonight, so appreciate all the council being here. We've asked Councilman Allen to give us an opening prayer, and then we'll go ahead and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our kind Father in heaven, we're grateful to have the chance to meet here this evening. We're thankful to be part of this great community. We ask that we can be guided and inspired to make decisions that will benefit those who we live with and serve. We want to express our gratitude for the freedoms that we enjoy, and we're grateful for those who fought to protect those, give us those freedoms. Ask that we can be mindful of those who are suffering and who are in need, and make decisions that we can help out. And we're grateful for these things. We say these words and do so in the name of Jesus Christ.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, the first item is just the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any amendments or corrections?
Correction on item number 7. I wasn't here, but I did read through them, and it looked like item number 7, I made a motion, and I was not here, so. And then there was,
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
on B7B, there was one spot where it said booze instead of.
Do my notes.
I'm good with it, but I understand. Probably not appropriate for this meeting.
Oh, there it is. Found it.
Perfect.
I move we approve the amended minutes with the corrections.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. By Councilman White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are passed. We do have our public comment. Trevor, you're looking dapper today too.
Thank you.
We have our public comment period tonight. Every council meeting. Are there any that would like to take an opportunity to address the council? You can take up to 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none, move forward with the moment we've all been waiting for. We're going to turn the time over to, I almost said Karen, that is not correct. Rhonda. Sorry. I have a flashback. So Ron's going to go ahead and swear the new council, and I guess myself in. Yeah, so we'll turn the time over.
Okay. I told JR I was gonna swear at it, and he said, that's fine, I'm gonna raise my hand and repeat after you, so I guess I better be careful what I say, right? All right, we'll start with you, Your Honor. Well, you're different offices. Raise your hand and repeat after me. I, JR Bird,
I, J.R. Bird,
have been elected and appointed to the office of mayor
have been elected and appointed to the office of mayor
of Roosevelt City,
of Roosevelt City,
and I solemnly swear
and I solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. So
Congratulations.
help me.
And that is for you, and if you will sign this one for me. We'll go next to David.
Yes, me.
Yes, just you. You'll repeat after me. I, David Baird,
I, David Baird,
have been elected to the office of City Council
have been elected to the office of to the council
for a 4-year term,
for a 4-year term.
and I solemnly swear
And I solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations. This is for you, and if you can sign back for me, please. Mr. Weiss. I, Dustin White,
I, Dustin White,
have been elected to the office of City Council
have been elected to the office of City Council
for a 4-year term,
for a 4-year term,
and I solemnly swear
and I solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations. You'll sign that one for me, and this is for you to keep. And last but certainly not least, our newest member. Would you like back up? I'm sorry. Okay, raise your hand and repeat after me. I, Rowdy Flower,
I, Rowdy Flower,
have been elected to the office of City Council
have been elected to the office of City Council
for a 2-year term,
for a 2-year term,
and I solemnly swear
and I solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations. Just use your signature here, and that's for you to keep. There's another one here. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rhonda. Appreciate that. Welcome Rowdy as the newest member of the council. Welcome back the other 2 councilmen that were triumphant in the election. Our next item that we have is Craig Miller lot line adjustment. Are you here representing Craig?
I am.
You want to come on up, and Dean is Dean here.
Right here. I'm gonna have.
Dean knows all about it.
So I'll show you what. That, and then it's Tony. She has the Mylar. He owns this piece of property. Oop. Okay, this piece of property here and this piece of property here. This one here has an older trailer on it. He's removed this lot line here, combined both these lots. He's gonna take this trailer off and develop lot into this piece of property. So he's just requesting a lot line adjustment to combine those properties. And zoning approved it without any restriction.
Any questions from the council?
I move we approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Allen. All in favor? Any opposed?
Was
Thank you.
Do you have the fancy pen?
Should be.
Most people are trying to subdivide instead of combine. Oh, you have the pen a little bit.
Oh, just run around this. Underneath there.
Pass you, there you go. Thank you for coming in. Next item is the right of noon, right of way. Light of Moon Lake, by the way, easement. Grant's got.
And what's being requested by Mr. Lyda is that he go from the point on the yellow line on the south side, which is where the city currently has power for some old well, and that he run a line up onto his property right there. And he had submitted some proposed paperwork, and there were really just one issue that I had, and then one other one that the mayor pointed out. The concern I have is that the city's really not in a position to just gift property, and this would be a permanent encumbrance on the property. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were getting fair market value as compensation. We've checked with Moon Lake, and their suggestion is that the easement is worth roughly $200. When we checked on the distance, it's 200 feet, and so I think it would actually be setting a pretty good precedent for the city right now to just be saying $1 a foot for this type of an easement. Were you gonna ask a question, Dave?
Yeah, I do have a question. Is that a one-time fee or would that be?
It'd be just a one-time fee. Yeah, and then they had prepared some paperwork for the easement to run as it's shown here. Jared, do you want me to talk about the other issue, or do you want to?
Don't mind. I was just, and as I'm looking at it a little more, I can kind of see, you can't see the contours or anything like that, but normally any power line usually parallels property lines. And so for it to angle out, I don't know, it's a personal preference. It's a personal thing with me, but I just feel like it ought to parallel the property line and not encumber more of the city's property than necessary. But that was just that was a personal thing for me.
I had a similar thought, that if there was any major road, you know, they usually parallel roads as well. So like if there was a road close by, it would be nice to follow the road so that it didn't, you know, you go cross country basically for sure.
And we're encumbering that part of the property. It's running, what did we estimate? It's 100 and something feet.
130 feet.
130 feet from where it crosses the property line where it's proposed right now versus if it continued on straight north until it hit the property line. It's that far to the west.
Do you know how many homes will be added on the city?
I don't, you know.
I was told no, not on the city property. So if where it starts, there's already a pole.
Yeah.
They'll put a pole on their property, so the only thing will be, you'll be driving under lines that aren't there.
Yeah, or if there's anything that we wanted to put there, we wouldn't be able to build any kind of a structure there. I think, Dean, did he leave? So, if I understand correctly, you have to be a certain distance away from, easement or power line to build anything. I think it's 20 feet, if I remember correctly. Is it 30? So 30 feet. So that just means that pushes anything that, you know, if we're able to put any kind of building or anything like that on there, we'd have to be 30 feet away from that line. And so, I don't know, it's not a big deal for me. It's just one of those things like, we'd have it this way or that way, rather than that way. So.
Those are the only two concerns.
Is it,
How did you?
If you decide to do something there, that could be moved, right?
At our expense at that point in time, yeah.
Well, it's not in stone, I mean.
Yeah, sure.
It could be undone.
Yeah, it can be undone. It just, it might cost the city a little money at that time to move it, but you're right.
so the existing power line, does it follow that road that goes south from the starting point of where we tap in?
That's what we were thinking. But
Yeah, maybe we've had time to verify. All we know right now is that there is a pole on the south end of the yellow line. We were assuming that it follows that dirt road that you can see that parallels to the property line headed south. We're not certain if that's where it's running right now.
I don't see any problem with the easement or anything at all as far as, you know, the $200 and allowing them access. It's just.
The only other information we have, I don't know that it approach one way or another. As we had checked to see if there had previously been power there and they were upgrading. What we found is that they just ran off of solar power there, and now they're upgrading to power.
Don't like the airport somewhere.
No, it's north of the Bluebell Highway.
Have we talked to the owner about adjusting that yellow line on more straight north following the property line or checking?
Yeah, I called him just before this meeting and he knows that we're talking about it. And he didn't have much concern, but
I'm just wondering why it went that way, not straight up like the mayor mentioned.
Well, if you consider, so you have your service on the power pole, and then you have underground conduit and wire that you have to run to your home. 126 feet that could be $1,500, $2,000. So it would ultimately, terrain isn't an issue, cost, it's.
So he's probably trying to save a little money by getting a little closer to where he wants it, so the conduit. If terrain isn't an issue, that's what I would assume.
And it sounded like, and this is relying on what Ryan had told me about the area. So jump in if I misstate anything, Ryan. But where you can see the darker green, kind of headed northeast there, is that is the drainage. So it likely would be going downhill a little bit, and it would have to go back uphill to the house. But we don't believe that the terrain drops off sharply enough that it's just not an option to go straight.
I kind of think it makes sense to have somebody from the city just representing the city go look at it and, if we haven't even been on the ground on this side, I just think it makes sense to go take a look and make sure there's no issues, with their plan,
So you're thinking just table it until your next meeting, or?
I was kind of missing.
Time crunch.
They have been waiting, but it's up to you guys.
It's the first time we've seen it though.
I mean, would everybody be okay with it just going straight north if they were able to accept that? If instead of deviating.
We've been out there and looked, I don't remember how the line goes, but it's just going from the existing pole to another pole, and I didn't think about the going straight. At the time, I just had overhead in my head
And it really isn't that big of a deal.
And there's an existing pole where it's going to, it just doesn't have power. Well, they're gonna set a pole there, so the existing pole's on the south end. On Roosevelt.
And it's
That's
only
what I thought
100
you said, but then.
But I think if they were to go straight, unless they buried further, if they put 2 poles in instead of 1, I think that's substantial.
Yeah.
Cost.
But I don't think when they have to.
I don't know, it all depends where he's wanting his.
And probably if he wants to go underground.
Yeah. I guess we can, if the council felt comfortable with it just staying straight, then we can fix that to him, and if he didn't like that, then we can always come back and address it, if he bid off on it, or was okay with it, then we let it ride and let it go. I don't know. That's what I would suggest. Unless there's another reason why not to approve it.
You could approve it with the 2 conditions that we're talking about, and then like you said, Mayor, if he had an issue with one of them, he could come back and ask that you reconsider.
I'm partial, honestly, like, I don't have a problem just approving it because I don't think, what's the land use?
We have wells there that haven't been in service for, my understanding, a very lengthy period of time, but that's why.
Yeah, there's a series of 4 or 5 wells out in this location. They've been abandoned for years.
But we do have infrastructure up there, water lines.
It's abandoned now.
Okay.
It used to be the water line that fed the Roosevelt City into the 1 million tank. And then they used it later on to fill the golf course pond. Well, now it leaks in several different areas. Needs some major upgrades, so we don't plan on using that. In fact, it's, according to the state, the water ride's still good, but
The well's not.
Hmm.
We'd have to re-drill it and
And we don't have any further use of this land as of right now, like future plans.
it's pretty far out there. It's hard to get to, rough terrain. It's kind of in no man's land, really.
I don't think it would hurt to just approve it as it is, but just because it's unlikely that we do anything with this land in the near future anyway, so. But I wouldn't object to having someone just go on site. That's actually what I do with my other jobs. I go out on site and look at things and look at all the resource concerns on, doing a right of way or whatever, but.
There's no concern on our end, because we've been out there, we know what it looks like. The only thing we have not checked is if that power line goes straight north. And you can still request that.
I think if the power line is already following that road going north to south there, I say we just have it go north and then they can run it off that pole to their house or whatever. But I think that would look nicer, maybe, I don't know.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, just stay consistent.
And the one thing that's deceiving too is that property line on the screen is shifted to the right. It's a lot closer to that road. A lot closer to the road. So everything's kind of shifted to the right a little bit. That makes sense.
Yeah. Which makes more sense if the line shift closer to the road, the power line probably right there next to the road too, and probably just hit. Yeah. I think it's interesting that Moon Lake wouldn't want it straight either, because to anchor that,
Right.
they're gonna have to put an angle anchor off on that pivot point. That's up to them, though, I don't know, but I'm not, you would know, Cody.
You have to put it.
I'm gonna go ahead and excuse myself from voting on this conflict of interest.
This is a big deal, guys. I gotta get this one right. So, is anybody comfortable moving forward? Do we want to table it?
What if we just motion to allow the power line to go in, but have a representative of the city just go and ensure it looks good and okay to run in the corridor that they've chosen?
That's fine. We just need a, go ahead to the motion. Were you going to say something?
Well, the motion just seems a little loose, like a better term. I mean, it's easy to set conditions. Like if we were to say, we'll approve it going straight north or with compensation or something, to just say, for somebody to go look at it and make sure it looks good.
Can I get what you're saying. Can I make a suggestion? And this is kind of a learning moment too for the council, especially Robbie being here first time. So you can have multiple motions. So let's do this. Is anybody willing to make a motion that the power line stays straight and the $200?
As is on the map, are you saying?
No, that it would.
No, that it goes directly north and it's
Directly
$200.
So we can have a first motion that it's going to, so let's have Dave motion that it's going to stay exactly how it is, but we have the $200. Would that be?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Okay. And then would anybody like to make a motion that it stays straight and the $200?
Amend my motion, right?
Let's assume that it does. So let's assume Don does. Then we vote on Don's. So we vote for the north. Everybody that would like to go north, say aye. Okay, motion does not pass. Now we go to Dave's motion. Who votes that the line follow the path that is designed on? Okay. Do we have a second for that motion? Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, the only thing, there's actually not anything that needs to change with the paperwork. You just need to pay the $200 fee and the descriptions. It's
Fair. Fair.
Thanks, Grant.
It's there is
Yeah. So the next item we're going to.
Ryan had a question.
make sure we got that right. Dave made the motion, Rowdy seconds.
Yes,
As is with 200.
correct. You got it. Don't laugh at me. Let's go ahead and, since Trevor and Sawyer are here, let's go ahead and do the time then for water report.
The council members that don't know me, I'm Sawyer, North Clear. I'm Trevor, I'm also a water technician in Water Department. Tonight we'll be discussing water usage report for 2021.
Sorry guys.
Okay. Technical challenges. So right now we service 2,880 total customers. That's with culinary, secondary, and county water right now. As we can see, we've luckily been able to keep an upswing in our culinary. Hopefully, with things that are planned, we can stay on track to make that climb up. We've hit a plateau on our secondary just for water availability and water access. County rates and county water kind of stay fairly plateaued just for available water. These are the numbers of total acre feet that we can pull out of each one of our wells or water sources. Hayden well, we have 5 wells in that field, so we can pull 8,207 acre feet out of that. We have a contract for the starvation water of 800 acre feet out of that. In Bergen Springs, one of our smaller wells over by the White Rocks Highway, we can pull 241 acres out of that. Our cold wells that we've talked about can, if we want to do work, we can pull water out of that as well.
Are those the ones that are by this?
Yeah, the county wells and cold wells are that. And then our secondary, luckily we've been able to get the other part of our secondary over to us, so that increased in the past 2 years. We did have only 1,500 acre feet on that, and then our drain shares.
We're at the Campbell well.
The Campbell well, where we're actually talking.
Yeah, the county wells. The cold wells are by Victory Tank.
Gotcha. Can you say that? That's a significant amount of water up there, the way I write too.
Yeah.
Who knows that water?
Yeah. So here we have our averages that we've had over the past couple of years. We can see that we plateaued in our secondary just for availability and amount of water we have. Victory water has dropped mostly for the fact of not being able to get as much water as they were going to give us, so we These are our usages out of each and every one of our sources. So out of our heating oil filter, we use 20% out of it. Out of the Victory water, we use 95%. The Bergen Springs, we use 12%. We don't use any out of the Copeland County wells just because those wells being abandoned. Our secondary water, our Sandwich Reservoir, we used 51% last year. And our Dry Gulch was 100% leased out to customers.
Just to know, on the starvation, we want to be that high, but in fact, we want to be 100%. We pay for it, whether we use it or not, so.
I don't understand, all right, going back to the percentages, because that adds up to over 100%. You mean 20%, what are you talking about?
20%
What's available?
Correct.
Yeah, so we use 20% of the Hayden.
Yeah, of what we have allotted there. These are each of our active wells that we have right now and what they can produce on that maximum capacity. These are the running levels of the well, so as the pump is going, the level of the well for each one of them.
This one, sorry to interrupt you, Trev. This one's actually a pretty important table because it's from earliest readings we got is from 1990 until now, and this is the water table. So you can see over the years, the drought seasons, the water level just kind of dropped. And we got asked quite a bit last year because of the drought and how's the wells doing, how's the water. So this right here kind of shows you we're kind of trending down. if history repeats itself, we'll probably be a little bit lower this year, next year, and then maybe kind of climb back up, but.
But that is something that we are expecting to be.
Well, number 5, turning up.
Yeah, well, 5's a tricky one because it's got a VFD on it and it varies on the amount of gallons we're pumping at that time when we do the readings, so that one's been tough.
We try to pull each one of these from a consistent timeline, but just due to available information, some of it varied. And then our most recent project that we have is the 2 million gallon Haven tank project. The estimated project cost for that was $2,536,000. Budget was $1 million. They started August 2021, and the completion date for that is May 2022. Should be able to put that in service.
How are we doing as far as staying on schedule with our costs? Are we staying within our?
So far, so good.
Okay.
Yeah, they ordered a lot of the supplies beforehand and you probably noticed them up there, stockpiled, but that has helped.
Good.
But we've only had one change order and it was only $2,000, so.
Perfect.
And that was a request on us.
And then these are just pictures of the project as it's moving along. Any questions?
Information.
Yeah.
Thank you, General.
So how much water, one of the things that we discussed at one point was looking at how much available water we have, how much available property we have to develop and how that works out, making sure that, and I'll bet it's in the master plan, but that's been something on my mind is as people come in and they have asking for more water, especially outside the city limits, what is our developable area? How much water do we anticipate using? And we know how much water we're entitled to, making sure that we're holding back enough water if we were to develop everything within the limits and not giving that water away to outside city.
So that was in our 40-year plan that we had passed, I don't know, 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so according to the master plan and the growth rate that we expect, and with what water we currently have, they feel comfortable with 40 years. Now with the railroad coming in and if things go crazy, that's gonna change things, but yeah. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it is in the plan, it is in the 40-year.
Yeah, I would just, yeah, it does. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thanks again. Appreciate being here. JUB General Service Agreement. This is something that we do with JUB every year. We pay our engineers for our airport. Josh?
Mary said it exactly. This is just re-upping that general aviation service task order. It's $10,000 per year. Everybody's familiar with JUB. They do an incredible job helping us with the airport. So this would just be to reassign that for next year for $10,000. Any questions?
I'll just add, I think give kudos to them because even with our airport board meetings, they're to every single meeting basically and advising us and helping us. So it's definitely worth it.
They come out of the city for that.
They come out of the city sometimes and then they'll Zoom if they're not here in person. Yeah, they're on it.
If I can give an example, we have an item on the agenda tonight that had to do with the airport. They've been communicating with Kirby probably 30 emails in the past hour because they want to make sure if we present it, it's done correctly. So that's how great they are. They're just making sure we get things done.
They're the ones that assisted in helping us get that with a $9 million runway taxiway project done. They cost the city, I think, maybe a couple $100,000 if that, yeah. Which is money that we had set aside because of our allotment anyway. I think it cost us 2%.
I believe you're right.
They actually won an award, an engineering award for that project down here in those.
Well, they deserve it.
And they're in the budget, we're okay that way to budget?
Actually, most of the grants and funding that we get, they are the ones that are behind that. He
Okay.
really stays on top of that and keeps me, just
And I think,
telling me what we have, so.
I think Don was asking the 10,000, that's in the budget. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes, it's.
Then I move we,
If you remember, we, here, was it last month, we approved an additional 4,000 because they had some additional work for last year. It increased to $14,000, and they're doing this on a calendar year, so this is just renewing it for the coming calendar year.
I move we approve them.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay. Second by Councilman White, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So the Interfaith Committee, this is something that, I was contacted by a couple of members of the Interfaith Committee, and Josh and I went to lunch with them and visited with them about their committee and what they're doing and some of their concerns. Unbeknownst to me, until just recently, the committee was asked to be formed by the previous mayor and council. And so I was thinking it was something they were doing on their own, and they were thinking that they needed support or wanted help from the city, and there was a little bit of disconnect. So we met with them and talked to them about what we could do as a city and city council to help them and support them in their efforts. One of the things that they mentioned is they don't want it to be looked at as any type of proselyting or anything like that. They're afraid that some of the other denominations might not participate if they feel like they're trying to steal each other's members, which is not what this is about. And so in talking with them, we felt like one of the things that we could do to help them, to bring organization to them, to that committee, and also to make it to where it's less threatening and non-denominational, is to have the city officially form a committee that we would then invite different faiths to participate in that, with the purposes of, when we're doing cleanup projects and service projects and those types of things, they would be involved with that to do, the fun things that we've been doing in the park. Almost call it Central Park, but that's Central Park, but not Central Park, and that is Old Mill Park. So they've done some fun things, just trying to bring the community together, and I think that was the vision, without being here, of that council, is just to bring people of all faiths and maybe even no faith together and just, break down some of those walls and those barriers. And so what I would like to propose to the council tonight is, and see if the council would want to go that route, or maybe just, what the council's feeling is. My thought is that we could form an official council or committee that would be appointed by the council, that would function, and that way it's non-denominational, it's just coming from the city, and we would hope that we'd get that participation with that if we did that. So I think that's kind of what they're asking. And so if the council felt inclined to do so, then at our next February meeting, Grant would have a resolution put together that would form that council or committee that we could vote on. And we would just set it up very similar to the other committees that we've put in place. So any thoughts, questions, comments?
You always know what I'm gonna say. And what I do. I don't have any issues with it, other than I just had a brief thought, and I don't know if it's a dumb thought or not, but getting government involved in religious affairs, is that something that we want to go into?
Good question, Grant. Is that something?
There's still a separation there, because it's just creating a method for different denominations to work together on projects. I don't feel like it's supporting any particular religion or advancing any of their agendas.
Okay.
That's a good thought, though.
Councilman Mayor, if I can add to that.
Yeah.
I think this is a great reason that we have Sunshine as our public information officer, to make sure that we're not blurring any of those lines. She'll help keep us on track with this committee to make sure it is doing the responsibilities assigned by council and not stepping over the bounds where it could, that we definitely don't want to.
Okay, what was your feeling when we went to that meeting too, Josh? Do you have anything to add or, any thoughts or anything to that?
I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really neat seeing different denominations get there with the sole intent of bettering the community. That's what the discussion was about, not about specific religions, but about bettering the community as a whole. And I think if we facilitate that and help that, we can do a lot of good. By having it be the city coming together to bring these people together, we're not a specific religion. We're just people that want to better the community. So I think we have a unique opportunity to help this succeed as long as we do it the right way.
And I love what they've done so far, the activities and things they promoted and done around the community. I think they're great, so I'm all in favor.
Dave, I haven't really thought a lot about the language that I'd use in the resolution, but I'll make sure that I include language about Christian churches.
Cool.
Go ahead. Any other discussion?
The thought that I had when we set that up, would it be better for whenever whoever's on that committee changes, for those at least to be recommended by the ones that are already, so we're not going out and asking people, have them recommend.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. One thought that we had, or that I have in regards to that is, on the Economic Development Committee, we have certain statutory appointments, right? So like UV Tech has somebody that represents UV Tech, the hospital, Moon Lake. And so in my mind, what we would do is we would send out a letter or something and try to get as many of those organizations to respond. And then they would be welcome to send any representative from their faith or whatever to participate. Does that make sense? So if one couldn't do it, then their responsibility, well, you still have a seat here, so send maybe a member or another person that belongs to that faith. So it'd be more, I don't know, kind of statutory appointments that way. But, and just leave it open for them to send a member of their organization to come. So I like that a little better anyway, because then I don't have to be so concerned about making appointments and having them ratified by the council and everything else. It's just, if you're of this faith, you have a seat at the table and please send a representative. And I think that would make it a lot easier. I think that's better.
That's what we've kind of done on our Parks and Rec is every time we need a new appointment, kind of the subcommittee goes and finds somebody, and that way we're not having to find somebody for each appointment. And it's worked really well.
Which reminds me, we have some appointments tonight we should have done already, but yours is one of them. So you have to find your replacement.
Okay.
and those will be coming up. As far as maybe if you go to that meeting next, you can just let them know that we're so close to March now anyway, we just kind of get by until March and then just officially appoint everybody at March, because then that'll start the clock over instead of having to appoint them and then they serve a month and reappoint them. Then we'll just get it all done in March and get that reset. Good thoughts. Any other thoughts? Okay, then you have enough, it sounds like enough information.
Yeah, I've got enough to at least put together a draft, and I can circulate it and get feedback for the meeting.
So one of the things I can think of is just, normally we have a set number of seats, and this would be an indefinite number, depending on, so it'd be it would be a more loosely formed council as far as majority and, those types of things, but it'd probably just be the majority of whatever the existing members would be. What was the other thing? Oh, we would still want the officers, so chairperson, vice chair, and secretary, I would imagine. And those would be voted on by that group as far as to be elected within that group. Those are the only things I can think of.
Yeah.
one thought, I don't know if we want to get into this at all, but there's, per capita, there's quite a few who belong to the LDS church. And is it just going to be one representative from each church? Is that how it's going to go?
I think you'll run into problems with separation of church and state if you don't.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. So,
I just think one.
Yeah.
One for each.
perfect.
We could load the board. Or they could. They could.
I think the bigger issue is just don't want somebody that maybe is a minority group feeling like they don't have a say, but
Exactly.
I don't think that's the case because they'll all be given the opportunity to come and they don't.
Right. Okay,
Can I motion?
you may.
A motion that we give the go-ahead to Grant to draft a resolution for next month's meeting. Is that good enough? Okay.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes, we'll go ahead and have that ready for next meeting, thanks. Broad risk assessment approval, Josh. You know what we need to do, Josh? I like you to see you standing up and sitting down, standing up, but we ought to do this, so you can stand and just get them all done once.
Better exercise. I've been out of commission a little bit, it's good for me to get the exercise.
There you go.
So the next two items are more informational for council. The fraud risk assessment is something that we are tasked to do from the Office of the State Auditor each year, where we look at our internal controls. Do we have separation of responsibilities? It's kind of an internal audit to make sure that we're doing the things that we should. And then we get a score that has our risk level. The levels go from anything over 355 is very low risk, and then under 200 is very high risk. And then there's very low, low, moderate, high, and very high. Last year, the city received 275 points for a high risk. This year, we are at 335 points, and we're in the low risk category. So
Good
definitely making some improvements there. We all know what's around us. But wonderful job that she's doing in making sure that we're doing the best we can to protect ourselves. That's what this is about. So really statutorily, we need to present that to council just so you know that we are doing that. There's nothing for formal approval there, but great news with our fraud risk assessment. So we'll be submitting that with that.
Not like you said, I appreciate the staff and what they've done. I also recognize, Councilman Barrett, and since he's been in, that's one of the big things that he has been working on for the last 4 years, I think, is making sure that we have those separations, and we worked hard to make sure that the appointments are in job descriptions and things like that, at least on our end, are separated, so good job.
I won't take any credit for that, but you guys are awesome. I just love to see things in order,
That's all I have on that one.
Thank you.
Next. Okay.
Yes.
The next thing on the agenda is the employee pay scale. So this is a structure that we're set up internally to help employees with retention and recruitment, all things across the board to make sure that this is not necessarily adequately paid. That is part of it because we want to make sure that we're within a proper range. So just to give you a brief overview of what we do, I first need to state tonight, we're not asking for approval to change any pay scales. We're not amending the budget. What we're doing tonight is we're simply establishing the pay scale. So what we've done here, if you go to the one right above that, Ryan. So in 2017, the city did a salary compensation study where they looked at 48 different cities. Last year, I did a similar one with some cities, the 64 cities, and then recently, a good thing about being laid up in the hospital is I had a lot of time to do some research. So I did some local comps. The only reason I started there was to make sure that we're not going way outside of the extremes either way. We're not way overpaying, way underpaying. I'm happy to report Roosevelt City is doing a fantastic job. We're right in the middle, which is where we should be. And with a lot of the math, I won't get into that, but I even took into account the cost of living differences, where it is a lower cost of living here than some other places. So I took that into account. Now going down to the wage levels, what we've done here is establish different pay scales. And as I said, this is something so we can look at to help with retention and recruitment. And Most importantly is transparency. We want people to know if we have, say, a police officer, the salary ranges from here to here, regardless of who their last name is, where they came from, what they look like. We're very transparent. It's very open. If an employee gets a raise, it's this next step. It's very open and honest and transparent. And so that's the key with this is we're not looking at people, we're looking at positions. So what we've done here with all hourly employees, we're putting them on a 12-year step program at 3% increases. Part-time or 10-year at 3%. The police department is at 15-year at 3%. The exempt employees are 15-year at 2.5%. And then seasonal and temporary employees will be set on a set number pay scale. So we have, if you'll scroll to the next one, it's a little easier to read. This one, Parks and Rec. So here you can see there's some hourly employees, some part-time employees, some seasonal temp, and exempt employees. What we've done is we've taken these pay scales, looked at out there in the community just to make sure we're okay. Again, we're not amending, we're not proposing any changes to the pay right now, but just setting the scale. And then what is key here is that every fiscal year, as we're preparing for the budget, council will have the opportunity to either approve the step increases or postpone them. For example, these past couple of years with COVID, it got a little crazy. That would be a perfect example of where we might want to pause pay increases during those times when budget does not justify it. If budget does justify it, then council could approve step increases. A step increase is not automatic. There's also criteria that the employee has to meet certain things in their employee evaluation to make sure they qualify for that pay increase. Then it also comes before council. And again, it would be worked out in the budget to make sure the money is there. And council will get the ultimate say whether or not those pay increases do go. If an employee were to get to, say an hourly employee, get up to step 12, they are then capped out. Their potential increases are a COLA, cost of living adjustment, which are not designed to be every year. A lot of communities use a COLA as their only raise. So they come for a COLA every year. That's not the intent of a COLA. A COLA adjusts the whole pay scale. So if an employee were capped out, a COLA is their opportunity to advance. Or they can look at the pay scales and say, you know what, I'm in this position. I really have aspirations. I want to move into a future position. Again, we want transparency. We want employees to want to better themselves, improve themselves, so they will know what the pay scales are for all of the other positions to where they could have mobility. Furthermore, each department will be completely reevaluated in great detail once every 4 years. So for example, I like to explain Roosevelt, we're not a big city, we're not a small city. We're kind of a unique city. We have some big city functions. We have great Parks and Rec department. We have great Public Works department. Well, we're kind of unique, but we also have some employees that do multiple things. So position X here might not be the same as position X in Salt Lake or in Loa, Utah, very two different places. So once every 4 years, we will dive into the job description, the job function of each employee and compare it with other places to make sure we are paying properly. That's when a salary adjustment could come into play. But to do that, we want to make sure we have proper documentation. We've done our homework. So that will happen once every 4 years to make sure we are compensating people in the right fashion. Tonight would be just to establish the pay scales. Again, not adjusting the pay, but that way so we get those in place so we can take that next step. Employees can see where they'll be if the budget so justifies and their employee evaluation to get a step increase next year. I can tell you, I've used this in other cities and it is a great recruitment tool. In fact, I'll use our police chief, Chief Watkins. When he was at Naples, he had a police department one that he would carry around in his back pocket. PD, as you know, they're always getting hit every single day about raises, this or that, the other. He was able to pull that out of his back pocket and say, here's what the city pays, here's where your potential is, here's the potential growth. Great recruitment tool because it's open. It's not about, you know what, I like this Bird guy. If he comes and works for me, we can get him more here. That's not what it's about. We are government, we're open, we're transparent, and that's what these are about so we can make sure it's out there so everybody knows what the position is valued. Again, we need to look at the position and not the person themselves. So we have this for each department, we have each position broken down, and I'm happy to report that I believe there's I think there's 2 employees that would be at the top of the pay scale. There's a couple that are closer, but the majority of the employees are right in the middle of the pay scale, which is exactly where we want to be. And I did do those comparisons with these other communities just to make sure that we are not out of bounds either way. And I did take into account, we're 5.7% below the average cost of living, so that was calculated into those figures as well. As I said, there's a lot of time when you're laid up.
I appreciate the effort. That's good. I'm glad to hear we're not out of line and that we're in a good position. And I'm always talked about, I'm a firm believer, we want to hire good people and we want to keep them because it saves us down the road a lot of money in terms of training and in terms of, they're representing the city. We want good people representing the city. And so I applaud that.
I think just having gone through some of those 2017 and forward, it's been something that we've been concerned about to make sure that we're compensating employees. But I like the fact that this lets it sets it up to continue to do that. So you don't have to find yourself in trouble down the road because you didn't keep up with it.
Thank you. And I will say, I did get a quote from one of the companies to do this compensation survey because it was something that I believe in and I wanted to get done. But it was really nice that I was laid up because I was able to do the work. So it did save the city some money there to get it started.
I don't know if anybody knows, but Josh was in a car accident, so we're just glad he's here.
Yes, we're glad he's doing better.
But I do like, our HR director did mention a recruiting tool too, and I think we ought to start utilizing it. He said that he would go around the county speeding, and when he got pulled over, he would assess how well that officer did, and if it did well, then he would hand them that brochure. And if not, then he wouldn't, but I think that's an excellent idea.
As long as he's going to try that.
Yeah.
In auto city vehicle.
So, any other comments, questions for?
So do you need something for us just to approve, a motion to approve this?
You could do a motion to approve. I will tell you there will not be a budget amendment. There is no additional funds to put this into place. There are a couple employees where we're changing pennies here and there, but nothing is being changed to the budget. So a motion, it might not be a bad idea to just so we're aware we're putting it into place. When the funds do come to change, that does come to council as part.
I had one other comment. You talked about how this is going to be reviewed and how employees would be reviewed and things like that. Is that going into the policy manual? I know we had the policy manual reviewed and updated when Finlayson was here.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it a living document? Can't we make changes to that as we desire? I think it'd be good to put those policies like on how that will be reviewed and stuff in there, when we start using it. So
Perfect question. So right now, as I've written into this, the policy would be an employee would need to score at least a 75% on their employee evaluation to be eligible for the next step increase. 75% technically doesn't exist right now as an employee, is an evaluation. So Brock and I are working on establishing what that 75% means because we want an objective standard. We don't want it to be one supervisor doesn't like this employee, we want it to be objective. So that's why we're doing a score matrix. Exactly like I said, it will be written into policy. Similarly with the steps being approved from council. I want to make sure that council has the ultimate say each year with that.
okay.
Okay. So, does anybody want a motion at this point?
I mean, if we can motion to adopt a pay scale for our city employees just as a broad motion, I mean, I think that's a great idea, but.
Or would it be better to wait till we do our next budget? Are you going to do this is this something we're going to put in place now, but it's really going forward?
Yeah, so ideally this will go into place February 1st, but there's no change to our budget until July.
Okay.
This is actually a tool that will make budgeting
Oh,
for
yeah.
payroll much easier for me.
Okay.
Kind of all over
And when
the
you look
place.
at the prospective positions, you kind of know what to expect and,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So if I can just suggest, if it does come from a motion from council, I think it just gives it a little more validity. So we can tell people as a recruitment tool, I mean, we can establish the pay scale, but if they question say, well, did council approve this? We can say,
Yes, they have. So doing that, do we have somebody ready to make a motion?
I'll make that motion then. I support it.
So do we also make a motion, do we, when they update policy in the manual, do we have to approve that yearly or anything like that? Or is that just an administrative thing? Okay, all right, yeah, I'll second the motion of Don.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye. If it helps Rhonda, I'm
You
good.
just opposed, Don, sorry.
I was just talking out of turn, sorry. If it helps Rhonda, I'm all for it. That's what I was trying to say.
Agreed. Kirby, would you like to report quickly on just the airport, the AWAS? I know we talked about this at our airport board meeting, but the need to replace certain components of the AWAS because they're not working, and then we had decided to make a recommendation to replace the whole thing, but that's kind of, so give us an update of what's transpired
It's
uh,
today.
changed just recently.
Multiple times.
Like Josh said, I received emails. So, for the eligibility on this type of funding, we have to follow federal standards. And where we only have one quote right now from DET, which would put it like sole sourcing, which would not qualify in this type of funding. So we need to put out like the specs and what we want and have at least 3 quality bids.
So
And they have to replace the whole system, not just part of it, for to qualify.
So to bring the council up to speed, there was a grant or grant money available to actually replace this. But what he's saying is to access that grant money, we only have one bid. We're gonna have to go out to bid for at least 3. Is that-
At least 3.
So it'll postpone it, but it doesn't mean that we can't use that money for that. We
No,
just
it
have to
still
follow
looks
that
very
process.
good, we will get, but we have to follow these standards. So that's why I didn't wanna.
And we probably don't wanna say how much it would probably cost because that may change after we get a couple other bids from.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess we can have an engineered estimate.
I actually have an update for you on the finances of the airport that we either do now or get to later, or as we were preparing for.
Yeah, go ahead while we're at it.
So Kirby and I were preparing for tonight, just to bring everybody up to date on where we're at with the airport. So you have a single piece of paper, it says airport at the top. And basically what this shows is revenues and expenditures based on the current fiscal year budget. And basically, our fuel sales are much higher than we anticipated. We're already at halfway through the year, 123% of our budgeted revenues. However, hangar rentals are at 7% of expectation. This is something that we've been working diligently to get a list of exactly who has planes housed where, so that we know who to be billing. There's been, as we all know, a little turnover since things have happened, and they suspended billing for hangar rentals when the door was in need of repair and some things, is my understanding. Well, it just, with turnover and what have you, that had not continued to be billed in any way, shape, or form. We have $1,000 here because we have one individual who comes in every month faithfully and says, let me pay my rent for my hangar. And so this entirely is from that one gentleman. So, but Sunshine's been working really hard with Kirby and some of the others to get a list so that we could go off of that, and we'll be working with Taylor to get up to speed with billing.
I visited with Grant too and mentioned to him that the price that was recommended by the airport board for the hangar rent, and so he's gonna write a lease agreement with the price included that will come before the council at the next council, that can be approved, at least for the main hangars, so we can get that out of the way, and then we'll work on the individual hangars after that.
Perfect. Expenditures, we're at about 80%. There again, the majority of that is from the second box there, fuel purchases. As we're selling more fuel, we're buying more fuel. So fuel sales are definitely up. Kirby's keeping up with pricing on that. We met at the airport board meeting the other night to discuss where they wanted to set that level. So that Kirby has something to base that on, so he knows where should we be to be competitive, but that we're not losing money? We don't want to be selling jet fuel just for the sake of selling jet fuel, so. The capital projects, the revenues, the grant money and the amount from the general fund is what we actually did put in the budget. The $159,000 is the additional funds that the mayor was talking about. We just found out in December that we had received this additional grant money. And this is the money that we were talking about using for the AWAS update. And so Kimberly, in talking with the FAA, there was a little bit of concern whether that would fall under the scope of this grant money or not. So there was a lot of back and forth between Lynn at the AAA and Kimberly and Kirby and myself today. And after the back and forth, it basically came down to, yes, this can be under the scope of this grant because we're replacing. And the system we have now, if most of the parts cannot even be found if we were to just try and do an update to what we have.
It's over 20 years old.
Very antiquated what we have. And AWAS is,
Automated
the definition we
weather,
did.
automated weather, anyway, it's your automated weather system.
There you go. Yes. And so.
Observation, that's what it is.
There you go. I
Automated
couldn't think of
observation.
the whole word.
Observation.
Lynn at the FAA finally came back to us and said, yes, this falls within the scope of this grant as long as you follow these two criteria, the main criteria. One of them being that we are replacing and updating with a whole new system, which we are looking at doing.
Yeah.
And two, that we do follow the state guidelines and have 3 bids for this.
One of the reasons this is important too is we talk about fuel cells. So this is the system that every pilot will log into to see what the weather is in an airport. And if they can't get the weather here, they may go over Vernal or somewhere close to land. And if they need fuel and things like that, they're going to get it there. So this is something that we definitely want up and running. Lifelight has been calling too because they're coming in and doing, we're missing the ceiling. So they can't tell whether we have IFR conditions or if they're low IFR or if they're VFR based on the information they're getting. And so as we update that, that's going to mean if we don't update it, we're going to deter people and have them go other places. And so it's going to be free to us because of the grant, but it's definitely something that we want.
And that part of
Because
the
of that.
collar sensor, and that's what we're talking about, that's only one part of the system. So we can't just replace that, it wouldn't fall under the criteria to get the funding if we did.
Yeah.
So if we do the whole system, which is needed because it's over 20 years old, some things may go out, you may replace that, and another part goes out, you can't even get it. So it wouldn't, be like putting a Band-Aid on it, so.
And the recommendation of the airport board was that this be, replaced and that we have updated equipment. And again, shown down below in the lowest box, okay, so back up at the capital projects, the expenditures, we had projects and equipment that we had budgeted for in the amount of $487,000, and that was for the airport master plan, and then of course we've got this AWAS now that we're putting in there. And that would actually leave some additional funds for some of the other projects. But where a lot of this is FAA money, not all of the projects we're looking at. They rarely do anything with structures or anything that's considered maintenance.
Right.
Yes. So we have to be, pretty particular about how these funds are spent. But there are funds that would be left over. Even, worst case scenario, we're still probably going to be within this additional grant to update this equipment and, with that. The airport master plan, presently we have $440 some odd thousand available, which is $400,000 from the FAA and $20,000 and some odd from both DOT and Roosevelt City. That would be our portion that we would put in towards this. Speaking with Neil and Kimberly, they're going to actually ask for the 400 and they're pretty sure that they can come in lower than that. But that's the big major project at this point is to get that airport master plan up to date.
Any questions? Thank you for that. I appreciate you giving us that information. Any questions on any of that from the council? I'll take a motion. Needs to be- Yeah.
There's no motion.
Yeah, not at this point. I think once we get those other bids, we'll be deciding on which one to go with, and then we'll motion to spend that money at some time, I think. So.
Well, and
Yes.
I think that one of the questions that we had was asking JUB to put together the specs to put out for the bidding for this, and that would fall under their agreement that we just
Up to the
approved.
$10,000 that we agreed. It would fall
So, and that's
under-
probably the best way for us to do this, for to have them put those bids up there, get the three,
Agreed.
guide us through that. So, I don't know
That's
if we
brought it up,
need,
Rhonda. No, that's great.
yeah, I don't know if we need a motion for
No.
that, but just,
When those bids come back, then we will.
okay, perfect. And I guess I might as well not sit down. We're gonna do the financial update real quick, right?
Yeah. You just keep it rolling.
Okay, so, the list has probably gone down through there,
Actually,
okay, it's still down here.
I had questions, but go ahead and present and then.
Let's start with the questions. One thing I'm going to do is there are two places I'm asking for your signature now.
Right,
This was based on the audit that is still ongoing, but they had suggested that I have at least initial, that, you know, you've seen all of the expenditures from month to month. So,
all right, so the first one, the purchasing, I noticed that on the last page, the invoice was 956,000 and the paid amount was 976,000.
very likely, typically when that happens, there's an invoice that's carried over from a
Okay,
prior month,
that's-
of course.
And I noticed that the Ascent Aviation Group was approved 21, but the invoice amount was 38.
Yes, and there's the additional amount that's on the PO today. And
Okay.
the checks often are written, but they're held by me until we have approval.
So that was my one on that one, and I will sign it and pass it on if anyone else wants to look at that one. The other one, I just was looking, I appreciate, by the way, Rhonda, thank you for the kind of the tendencies, because I think that's important. I noticed, I'm assuming PHP, we had no November payment, December looked like a double, so I'm assuming that's what that was.
Yes, yes.
And I was just curious on the Duchesne County Water Conservancy, those are all different. I thought we had a set.
It does fluctuate.
Okay.
And part of what we're seeing in some of that was we had the vault payment that we also, you know, went right along with, and that was approved at the last council.
Good. And then I just noticed, I don't know why, but URS was quite a bit less in November. There wasn't a December, but it was like 20,000, but the month before was almost 60,000.
Yeah, so Brock does the PEHP and the URS, and unfortunately he's out because I had some questions myself, just trying to understand the timing on some of these things. But I do know that it's not always timely. Sometimes we're a little bit in arrears or some catch up is done. Why, I'm not completely sure. But I will get some clarity from Brock when.
Well, the big thing is I just appreciate that we have some tendencies now. We kind of know going in, like you can see some months are more, some are less, and you can say probably winter months or
Yeah.
summer months, and then, you know, some things just fluctuate because of, like K&K fluctuates because how many people, that kind of stuff. But I do think it's always good to look at trends and see if there's a.
Probably tell you a little more than just here's the bill.
Right, yeah, and I appreciate that, and those were the only questions I had.
Okay.
I'll pass that down.
Wonderful.
Thank you, they were easy, I just, clarification mostly.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't get to talk to you before the meeting today. like I
Yeah.
usually do, so. So there is a 3-page stapled together in front of you with the financial update. There is still some tweaking that needs to be done to get everything in the right bucket, so you can't always look at specific line items, unfortunately, right now. It all has to do with the mapping of the payroll through Bamboo. What's there is what's there, it's just not always sitting in the right bucket at the moment, so.
Is that like, that would include license and permits or intergovernmental?
No, so the top is the revenue, and this is a good story. At 50% of the year expired, we are at 58% of our expectation for revenue. So not only are we trending where we should be, we're a little above.
Perfect.
And expenditures, that's, I guess, where I was actually talking about, and if you just go to total expenditures, once we've got everything mapped where it should be, we are at 48% of our budget at 50% of the year. So, yes, I hope that trend.
Well, well done, Rhonda, and the city. Well done. All of you.
And below that are the ARPA funds, which are basically, we have received those funds, but we have not really delved into spending too much on the ARPA funds. Debt service, that's something you will see on there. We had the annual payment for the aquatic center, which.
Was on the page.
Yes, yes.
On the, I'm sorry, to go back to ARPA, you mentioned, we talked before that you were going to a meeting or something to find out about what we could spend or not
I'm
spend.
still waiting for the final. There
Okay,
were some very specific guidelines about some of the spending, and I think they've loosened some of those guidelines a little bit, but there are still specific things that the intent behind the ARPA. Things like our online presence and things like that, just to, do what we're doing here where we can involve a lot more of the community because they don't have to be here. They could get in on, the Zoom of the call or whatever. So that and working on our web design, which Sunshine will be working on within the next year and some of the things that we have planned, so.
and we just got a new intern that might be able to help with that, I'm hoping.
Yes, yeah.
He's an MIS student, so.
Mhm. Yes. Sharp young lady. Capital projects, again, we have not actually, spent much of that yet, but we have several items, equipment items that have been on order and we're just waiting for receipt of those. We did actually get, information on the water tender that we've been waiting on for so long that there is going to be a price increase. It's just out of their hands, they're saying at this point. But the last I heard, steel's going up, aluminum's going down, so I don't know, there may be, like, at this point, they're saying that the construction, but it's the frame there's going to be maybe a 3% increase, I believe it was, but. So, water utility, sewer utility, everything's flowing along at a pretty good pace, and,
That's good in the sewer department.
we like that to flow. No pun intended, right? Yeah, charges for services, you'll see, we're at 53%, back to page 1 on the revenues. There are several of the line items that, licenses and permits, I guess you probably all saw the email, the question was asked at the last council meeting, like, why was this up? And I sent an email that hopefully all of you got that kind of explained what that was and what the projects were. Intergovernment revenue, again, let me see. This is, state grants and liquor control allotment funds that have come in. And then.
Speaking of that, really quickly, sorry to interrupt. I did get a phone call from, I think, an employee that works at the liquor store, and I think their license is coming up. Is that something that happens every so often, Grant? Is that they have to renew for their liquor license, and so that's gonna be coming before the council here pretty soon, just for thoughts. So that a lot of that revenue comes from that, sounds like?
Yes, well, a good portion of what we get, in grants for, liquor control allotments are for what the police department spends in liquor related, activity, DUI. Mhm, yes, so, yes. And
Totally unrelated, but still spirited.
Yeah.
But not.
That's good, so, yeah. And, charges for services, some of the things that just kind of stood out. The animal control is doing really well with collecting, fees. Kudos to Rose and her crew over there. And, junior jazz and soccer and some of those programs, have already exceeded what we had budgeted for those as well, so that's a good start. Any questions?
I have one question for my information. I'm just curious, on the revenues for capital projects, we've only received 11% so far. Is that because when we purchased the truck or whatever, we received the funds at that time, or how does that work?
It's, it's all timing. The funds are available at different times for different things and, let me look at the specifics.
I think one of the capital projects we're looking at too, is State Street, so we won't receive those funds.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just anticipating
For
receiving more.
roads or some of those things, sometimes it's a reimbursement. So we won't see those fundings, until the work is actually completed,
Okay,
yeah.
that's really all I wanted to know is just,
And a portion of that is sale of the vehicles, which are that's still pending. We actually sent the first few vehicles with the lease company, and we were not satisfied with the amount that we received for those, so the decision was made that we would sell those in-house at this point in time. There's a high demand for vehicles of all kinds, so, Josh really felt that we could do better doing something in-house, so. That's something we'll get working on here right away, so, yeah.
cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rhonda. I really appreciate the reports we're getting and being able to look at those, and especially just the trends. I like seeing, they tell a story that helps us understand what's happening and if there's a problem too, as well as anticipating, like I said, being able to budget and know this is where we need to be. So thank you.
All right, Josh, back to you. Thanks again, Rhonda. Oh, is he here?
He's not here, right? We'll present what we're doing and if you want to take that room.
So, go ahead, you.
So we're gonna go back a step. We have our employee of the month recognition tonight. We're hoping, excuse me, that the employee would make it. He's traveling back from out of town, so he is not here. So I'm gonna introduce the new program that we're doing, and Neil will present it to the room. And then next week we have a safety meeting, staff meeting, and I'm gonna present it to him at that meeting as well. So this way, that's why we are still gonna officially present it tonight, and then we can present it to him next week. So the Employee of the Month program is a new program that we've implemented here at the city to recognize, excuse me, employees for their hard work and going above and beyond their regular job functions. I'm going to read a little bit about the criteria, and it's to recognize outstanding employees who show exemplary individual achievements, contributions, and performance in their jobs and other related duties beyond their own office. Acknowledge those whose efforts have inspired and supported the performance and achievement of others. Demonstrates a positive attitude toward work responsibilities, coworkers, and customers, and services as a role model for others. Committed to quality and carrying out job responsibilities and is an asset to the citizens of Roosevelt City, and a willingness to exercise servant leadership, take initiative, and accept and carry out additional responsibilities beyond the regular job assignments for the good of the community as a whole. So those are some of the selection criteria. We have 2 pages worth of requirements for this employee recognition. The one thing that is key here is these submittals for these employees can come from anyone, and hopefully everyone, including council, including the public. Sunshine put it on our website so people can actually submit an employee there. And the employee that has been selected tonight is one of those that was submitted online. But the key here is we want everybody involved to recognize those employees that are going above and beyond in serving and being a leader in the community and what they're doing. So that's the purpose behind the Employee of the Month program. Any questions before I turn it down over to Mayor?
No question, just comment. I appreciate it. I saw it on the Roosevelt City website. It's the first thing that comes up is if you have someone you want to nominate. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And please do. The one thing I'll tell you, the easy criteria, they have to be an employee for over 6 months, but it's open to part-time, seasonal, full-time. And everybody except for the executive action team is eligible, which includes the mayor, myself, and I. Don't submit us because we're not eligible. Other than that, please recommend anybody that you feel is deserving.
Thank you. And so, we don't have a drum roll
Yeah, and that is a present for them in the box.
this year.
Yeah, if you want to take it out,
For me.
you can show everybody what that is.
Sure, there are only 12 of these in the whole wide world, and you have to be one of the 12 winners this year to get this. It's the coveted
Oh,
Roosevelt
wow.
City Club.
Roosevelt City Cup with the new logo.
It says Employee of the Month on it.
That's excellent. So, I was gonna say, I want one of those, but.
I didn't design it.
I'm not
I didn't.
eligible, so
And Sunshine Design, let's give them credit.
That's great. So this month, the Employee of the Month is Clyde Stansfield. And so he is a member of the Public Works Department. I don't know if anyone, the council knows Clyde. I know Clyde, he's one of the ones I always have a little fun with as far as the parades. He's the one that comes and sweeps at the end of every parade too. So he doesn't get to watch the parade, he gets to sweep at the end of the parade. I told him I was gonna take that position this year. They haven't trained me on the street sweeper yet. But this individual that nominated him said, Clyde told me with a smile that he had only ever had one Christmas day off because it always snows on that day. This year again, it snowed and there he was cleaning the roads. So that just goes to show his dedication. The characteristics of Clyde, good attitude, stresses because he cares, and he's a great team player. So we want to congratulate Clyde. We wish he was here so that we could congratulate him in person, but just appreciate all that he does, all the staff does, but especially in this time, all that Clyde does. So Clyde, wherever you are, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll pass that on in your department head meetings, so.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. And do you have?
A couple more items on the city manager report. A couple things I did want council to know. Next month, we will have a report on the police and fire stats. Police is having a little bit of struggles with the changeover to Spillman, but they've assured me next month they will have that.
Thank you.
Ready to go. The city does have 2 interns. We have one college intern, and I believe the other one is a high school intern.
Yes.
I have not met her yet.
She got COVID and got stuck home for a week. Kay Campbell, I think is her name.
And the other one is Amada.
Ah, shoot. I can't remember her last name now. I apologize.
She is a student at Utah State. She started last Friday. We're really excited about this program to have interns to give them opportunities to learn about local government and all the opportunities that are available. So I want to thank Councilman Buzenbark for helping us set up that, participate in interviews with us, and we're really grateful to have 2 interns there. Finally, speaking of Kay Campbell who has COVID, we do want to let council know there's a lot of illness out there, and I really want to commend staff. They've done a really good job of picking things up when people have been down. As you know, illness is running rampant right now throughout our entire community, so I just want to compliment them for being able to have broad shoulders when we're down in certain positions. I know personally I've really appreciated that admin staff here that has helped me so much as I've been gone. We have such incredible staff that's willing to step up and help individuals when they need it. Any questions for me?
No, great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Committee reports.
I don't have any.
Councilman White, do you have anything for us?
No, there's a meeting tomorrow with Utah League of Cities and Towns. If anybody signed up to go to local officials, that I didn't, but I'll be zooming in the meeting at 2.
Is local officials day tomorrow? Okay. We'll need to do that next year.
Normally we'll have a meeting before this.
We'll anticipate it for next one. Councilman Barrett?
Nothing to say.
Okay. I know we talked a little bit about the gun range today. Still haven't heard word on that grant. We're talking we may need to. I don't want to let another spring go by without getting something done. I think it's been a little over a year that we've really been ready and to break ground on this, but we've been holding out for that grant, and so that might come up to the council here shortly to make that executive decision on whether or not we wait or move forward. But I think that's all I have as far as things that I'm working on. Councilman, I almost called you Councilman Rowley, but I guess that'd be okay. Do you have anything for us tonight? And Councilman Allen? Excellent. I don't know if, I guess there's no items for future discussion. We don't have a closed session tonight. And so unless there's any reason to stay, would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Motion in a second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you all. We're good at 7.
Dave Beard.
Dave Beard.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
And I'm okay if you put booze, I promise. Councilman Booze. People know that. All right.
Well, I don't know what it would get.